All right, folks. Thanks for listening to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric. I'm the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with...
I'm Dan, the ambassador of nonsense.
And
we've got a little bit of nonsense to talk about today, don't we?
Starting with that Gillette commercial. Be the best men can be. Gillette knows how men should be, apparently.
Yeah, that's apparently that's it's kind of interesting. I know that Gillette has not, like most modern secular product companies, they really haven't had any problem with objectifying women, which is at least part of the part of what they bring out on this this commercial they've got. But
kinda, because there's that one point where the boy sees a girl walk by. She's an attractive girl, and he starts after her, and the heroic young black man comes out and says, "Not cool."
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the situation. I mean, not cool. What was he gonna?
Was he gonna rape her or something?
Keep her in his basement, or was
he going to go try
to get her phone number, or what?
Should we not? Don't know. Should we not
there's no context.
Should we not make advances on women at all, or
not be attracted to them? I
don't understand. Is that toxic?
I don't know. Maybe it's a contextual thing. Like, okay, if you're just in any old public place, then it's not cool, unless it's a place designed to, for mixing and interacting or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what they were going for on that one.
Maybe they weren't aware of how the race propagates.
That could be. Yeah. Don't know.
We got to have that starting place, but oh well.
Right.
I got one quick question. I should have given you a warning about this, but off the cuff, if you were going to describe manhood with one word, what would it be?
One word?
One word to describe manhood.
And it's cheating to say manhood, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be. Masculinity.
It's hard to say one word because, protector comes to mind, builder comes to mind, sacrifice comes to mind. I mean,
how about,
I don't know.
Responsibility?
Responsibility.
That kind of covers a lot of those.
It does, actually. That's true. That, just accepting and living a responsibility. That's So I guess that's the thing that makes me kind of unsure how to take this Gillette commercial thing, because for the most part in the commercial, and there are a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, the behaviors that they're showing that clearly they want to highlight as, say, bad behaviors, fall into, two categories. One is, going along with the pack, not being a man, not standing up, not taking charge, not being the alpha when some leadership is needed. Okay. The second one is just plain puerileness, just, stupid, adolescent, boyhood, dumb stuff. And it seems like that is the bulk of example of bad behavior they're showing. And in both of those cases, what we would have considered traditional masculinity, taking charge, dominating, being responsible, and so forth, are the antidotes to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not, on the one hand, if you were to take this this video out of any cultural context, out of a societal context, and just show it, you would just get the impression that, oh, okay, they're showing that men got to stand up and be men. Men got to do what men have always been trained that they ought to do. But in today's society, for some reason, people have this impression that our traditional approach to saying, here's what it means to be a man, you deny yourself in favor of what's right and what's good. You put yourself out in front when needed. You take charge when needed. You show leadership. You show protectiveness, and so on and so forth. It almost seems to imply that's not really how we've been all along, trying to train boys to become men.
Right, and I think that's kind of that's kind of why everybody's so ticked off about it. I mean, they're trying to portray men throughout history as I don't even know what I'd say, like barbaric, but it's not barbaric. It's as weak.
Yeah.
And they're saying, okay, now it's time to stand up and be a man. Well, wait a minute. If you're like 60 years old, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
do you remember World War II? Does everybody forget about that?
Right. I mean, that's... Yeah, that's and the
it's the same crowd that pushed against things like censorship, where the people of old days wanted to not objectify women in
right. So they would censor the kinds of movies that exploit women, for example.
And so culturally that was pushed against, so that it became acceptable to objectify women more and more,
including
and more.
Some of Gillette's own past commercials.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't seen them, but I mean, I see things like attractive women rubbing against a man's cheek to talk about how smooth. I seem to remember a commercial like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, the women in tight fitting bodysuits with Gillette written, in places that draw the eye.
Okay,
stuff like that. They're not. They've never been above that. I mean, the same thing. Like, think of the Bud. Similar to, say, the Budweiser with the girls in the swimsuits laying on the beach towel, and their swimsuits have the letters that say Budweiser when they're laying just right, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a long time where culturally we were against that kind of stuff, and there was a push to allow it because you're being old fuddy-duddies, and now.
Yeah.
Are these people admitting that they were wrong? I don't think they are, though, because
I mean, it's not.
Now they're trying to act like the old guys were not the ones pushing for that kind of objectification.
Right. It's almost like they, they beat their fists against the rules that were there to, in large measure, really protect women. And now they're acting as though all along those rules haven't been there, and that all along the whole, the rather manly attempt to keep those rules in place is actually responsible for the current lack of those rules. I don't know.
Yeah, they show this 50s, and it's not a real show. They made it up. This like 50s type show where the guy's grabbing the girl's behind, and everybody's
while she's cooking,
approving of that. And it's like, wait a minute, that kind of stuff didn't exist. That's just it. It does now.
Exactly.
That's the kind of thing that happens on TV all the time now, and it didn't happen back then. And it was those older guys who had kept it from happening.
Yes, it was traditional masculinity that kept that from going there. Yep.
And then there's the whole fighting thing. That fighting is no longer acceptable.
Yeah,
that kind of irritates me.
It's not like men used to stand around and watch boys fight. If they were involved in a friendly wrestling match or some other kind of contest, that involved physical struggle and use of strength, okay. But I think by the time the one guy pulls the one kid off, he's kind of beating the kid up. It's definitely a fight, not just wrestling around, the way boys tend to do. But there again, all the men that are, what are they doing? They're standing behind their grill, kind of going along with this pack mentality of just saying, oh yeah, boys will be boys. You got to let them fight, whatever. And failing to live up to the standard of manliness that we kind of grew up with, as our standard that we were held to.
Right.
And I think even more so the generation before that.
Yeah. I have to wonder if the guy who broke up the fight, if it was his kid getting beat up. And that's why he broke it up.
I don't know. That's, I would hope that he would be the guy whose kid was doing the beating up.
Right.
That's the guy who should have stepped in. But the thing is that, again, the bad example they're showing is exactly the weak non-manliness that,
and
that was looked down upon, for the past century. And
at the same time,
that as well.
There are times in a man's life where it's not just acceptable, but where he's really has a duty to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And men find this out at a pretty early age.
Yeah.
And I guess it's not in a case where he had, the guy insults your mom and so you end up fighting. It's not like you have a duty at that point to fight, but it's kind of a natural inclination because there are times later on in life when we do have the duty to fight because there are times we have to protect our families or our country.
Right.
And fighting isn't just or innocent people who might be getting, picked on or whatever. I mean,
exactly. That's one of the things. I mean, they really don't give much context for these episodes they're showing, and you don't know what was behind whatever scene there is. Now the guys, I think the example is the guys standing around kind of just letting each other, the fact that none of them are stepping in is each one's individual excuse for not stepping in. Well, okay, that's a very unmanly way to approach life.
Right. But see, here's the thing. Okay, let's say the men are not there.
Okay, then what?
Then there's two boys fighting it out.
It's the boys. So why?
Now one of them is beating the other up, but let's say there are other boys around or one other boy around. Now, if the boy moved in to protect the other one, wouldn't he also be bad for fighting?
Yeah, that's you don't know. That's one of the things about the I guess the modern approach to manliness is that the principles don't matter.
And the principles don't work because in this case we have two young boys fighting and an older man steps in. But what about when two older men are fighting? Nobody steps in and breaks it up just by saying, all right, that's enough.
Right.
There has to be violence at some point to put a stop. Well, not always.
Even to put a stop to the violence.
Generally, to put a stop to violence, there has to be violence.
Right.
And
I mean, sometimes a policeman, may be able to,
right,
guys are
sometimes
in a full-born fight. He may be able to get in the middle. More likely, he's going to have to pull his billy club out.
I was driving through Price Hill once, and I had the kids with me, and I'm driving past this situation where there's a guy and a girl, and it looked pretty tense, and it looked like she was about to get hit. And
wow.
so I'm slowing down a little bit, and there's some cars behind me, and my kid, Ronnie, says, "Dad, he hit her." See, the kids see this.
Watching.
I have to stop now. I have to show example, and I have no idea if this guy's, I don't know, he could have a gun or a knife or something. I've got nothing. Yeah. We're on our way home from church.
Yeah.
So I kind of I just start getting out of the car. There's a van behind me with another guy, and I'm thinking, good, I'm not alone.
Right.
So I start walking that way. I've got my cell phone out to, maybe start dialing 911
or something.
And the guy just pulled around me and left. I'm like, holy cows.
Oh,
I got to do this alone with kids in the car?
Oh, man.
I don't see. So was that guy being a real man because he wasn't going to fight? Or wasn't going to put us? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think
the commercial's stupid.
Gillette commercial aside, I think a lot of what people criticize as modern manliness, that guy lived up to, and you failed on by stopping and being ready to actually do something, to take action, to protect, to assume responsibility.
Yeah, it's and I sometimes wonder, what was it like 60, 70 years ago? Would more people have stopped to help a long time ago?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they talk about those psychological tests and stuff where, they look to see if people will help someone in trouble. But, with a lot of those tests, nobody does anything until one person does something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, 60 years ago, I can imagine a lot of people being the kind of person who, if there's one other person stepping in, I'll join him, but I'm not going to be the one. But this guy in the van, he wasn't even willing to do that.
Right. He just wanted to get by. I think he was on his way home from church also, which is disappointing because we were in the same church. But I don't know. Maybe he thought, well, that guy's going to handle it. I can get out of here.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can look at that.
He can get shot. I don't need to hang around.
Yeah, I don't need to be shot. But, oh well. I guess the fact is, culturally, manhood itself has been under assault for a while now. Mm-hmm. And we're raising a lot of kids who don't even understand what manhood is, what it means to be a real man, or why it's important.
Right. Well, it's kind of in a strange twist of irony. The rise of feminism, and people look at the feminist movement, and they've done tons of sociological analysis on it, and they've got it divided into multiple movements. There's like first wave feminism and second wave feminism, and I think we're in the fifth or sixth wave right now or something like that. But the irony is this: the rise of feminism, the original kind of pursuit, I think, of the first feminists, and I think this has kind of been in the background of all of them, has been explicitly to try to erase from womanhood that which distinguishes it from manhood. And when if you allow things like, teaching your sons to be men and talking about manliness and masculinity and making an explicit goal out of that. Well, if there's something that's called being a real man, then there's also something that's distinct from being a man, which is being a woman. But wait a minute, feminists want to deny that. So feminists are not just focused on womanhood and trying to gain privilege for womanhood. In large measure, what they've been doing is trying to destroy manhood.
So it's easier to erase the characteristics of a man than to mimic them.
Right. But the problem is, you can erase the manly characteristics of men, but what you're not going to erase is the selfish impulses of men and the fact that men are stronger. So when you erase the manly characteristics of man, but leave that other stuff there, what do you get? You get the objectification of women. And you get a rise in crimes like rape and stuff like that. So feminists, by trying to, in their very short-sighted, very superficially understood approach to raise up women, so to speak, have undermined them tremendously and brought all kinds of horrors on women in the late 20th and going into the 21st centuries.
Yeah. And we are at a point now where, on the one hand, we're told there's no difference between the sexes. On the other hand, we've got men who want to be women and women who want to be men, which makes even less sense if there's no difference between them. If there's
no difference, yeah. If there's no difference, then just be who you were born.
Yeah, why do we need special rights to anyone? If it's like the whole culture is just kind of entered into this cartoon world.
Yeah, it's surreal. I mean, it's like an Alice in Wonderland kind of thing.
Yeah, nothing really makes any sense at all. And there's some of the other things that you mentioned. Some of the things in the video, like you talked about some of the stupid things that boys or men tend to do that are very much what only boys or men would try to do. And I a lot of times I wonder why this is fought against so much. Things like and when someone says boys will be boys, these are usually the kinds of things they're talking about.
Oh,
like you're not going to watch a boy rape a girl and say boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys.
That's not what boys are boys for.
Right.
But if you saw a boy saying something like, "Hey, what happens if we set this propane tank on fire and or blow this up?" Or I think the best example I can think of is when a bunch of guys had a washing machine and set it on the spin cycle and then would drop bricks into
Put a brick in it.
Those are the kinds of boys will be boys things.
Moments. Exactly.
And there's nothing morally repugnant about it. It's just, it's stupid things, not bad things.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like, okay, that was a kind of a weird, silly, pointless thing to do. But yet, for some reason, yes, boys do that. That's and okay, once in a while you'll find a girl who does something along those lines, but the reality is there's something built into boys that they do stuff like that.
Yeah. And I can't say I see anything wrong with it, and
in fact,
I'm sure it's
didn't
put
really
there
pick
for
up that
God,
the
by
boys
God, I mean.
in the Gillette commercial were actually fighting until the very end.
Right.
So
it was kind of a wrestling
boys
match.
will be boys, comment. You almost didn't really have enough context to understand why it was inappropriate for the men to stand around saying that.
Right. And again, the boys were really fighting towards the end, but you have
looked
boys.
to me like they were just kind of just boyish, wrestling, kind of like, the way you see dogs wrestle with each other playfully.
Right.
Boys do that. I don't know. Girls probably don't realize that boys do that, but boys do that.
Vicky had, her only brother is like 10 years older than her. So she was not used to boys when we had, boys. And
a whole bunch of boys.
It surprised the hell out of her because it was like, why are they fighting? And I'm like, Vicky, they're not fighting. They're wrestling. They're both laughing. Yeah, I know. They're wrestling. They're having fun. It's okay.
Right.
And
right. And you didn't know that wasn't what was going on in this Gillette commercial at first.
Right. Until the end. And it's like, well, of course guys break up fights when they see their kids fighting. I mean, it's like, when does this happen that boys act this way? Right.
That's the thing. It's the kinds of behavior that the commercial seems to call out as bad are things that for the most part we would agree and say, yeah, that's bad. But the suggestion in the commercial that boys have been raised to behave this way all along is ludicrous.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say that the boys who behave that way tend to be the ones who aren't raised at all, whose parents don't take time to teach them. They're the inner city,
boys without
abandoned
fathers,
by their father, raised by a single mom kind of boys that engage in these bad behaviors.
And then there's, again, I keep going back to that part where he's going to go. I don't know what they were trying to portray there, like he was going to stalk her or something. But
oh yeah, the one who's going after the girl. I mean, is it just that it was inappropriate to go approach her, ask her phone number, whatever he was going to do, because they're not in a bar where you're expected to approach people, or what was it? I don't know.
Right? Do you have to get permission to approach a girl to ask for her number? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
guys hit on girls. And it's competitive out there. I mean,
yeah,
you're dealing with half the human race here. I'm competing with half of the human race. For any girl, I would want to, I don't know,
get to know.
Yeah, and
right? That's I don't. Maybe there's this concept that you should not get to know anybody who's not put in front of you for that purpose.
That could be it.
I don't know. Maybe only date girls that in school, or if you want to get a date, you got to go online and do a dating app. You can't just approach somebody and say, "Hey, do you want to go get a drink?" or something like that. I don't know.
And the question is, how many women really actually want it that way? I think very few, except for those who don't often get advances from men in public settings.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Now, if the guy had, approached her and she said, well, no, not interested, and she's walking away and he keeps following her and, trying to intimidate her into give him a phone number or something like that, if they had shown something like that,
then it would make more sense.
Then you could understand.
But that's always been... that's never been accepted by men anyway.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, that's never been part of the scene. In fact, I would say that it's never really been part of the scene that a guy approaches a girl just in public just to get her phone number anyway. I mean, that's so rare.
Yeah, that doesn't happen really very often, and it doesn't work when it does happen generally.
Yeah.
But
I mean, usually there's some kind of setting you're in first, and then you notice a girl and you go and you approach and talk to her or whatever.
But there are guys who attack it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a matter of like stalking to them. It's more of a numbers game.
Yeah.
The more girls you ask, the more likely you are to get a phone number. I don't know if you ever watched that show, King of the Hill.
No.
There was one where this guy, Boomhauer, is trying to tell Bobby how to get girls. And they're in a shoe store, and he approaches like 20 of them. And they all say, they all tell him to go kiss off. And finally, one of them gives him a number. And he holds it up triumphantly, and he's like, well, you were rejected 19 times. He's like, it ain't nothing.
Yeah.
I know guys who go at it that way.
That's how they operate?
Yeah. I wouldn't say they were creepy or anything, and they don't stalk women or anything. I don't think it's necessarily creepy. It's just, and I don't think it's unmanly, but it's the way some guys operate. And I'm sure you can go through and find a lot of really good relationships that started that way.
Right. Kind of just, the guy took a chance, and then maybe the girl did too.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that people don't think about is manliness in terms of what I'm going to say Genesis, but the idea of the creation of man and the position that, for example, Adam was put in. Now, of course, a lot of people don't even believe in the whole Adam and Eve thing. A lot of people don't even believe in creation. But I think the majority of people, at least in America, at least claim to be on some level Christian, which implies that, that you at least have some kind of belief in this stuff. So if you think of Adam and the position that he was put in and being put in charge of the garden, and then there's Eve and he's taking care of her and so forth. And then when you look at, and in order to do that, he was given certain instincts. But then after the fall, Eve accepted the fruit from the tree under the influence of the serpent. And then she gave it to Adam, and he accepted it and ate it. Okay, and there's the fall of the human race. Now, one of the things that's interesting is God, he's kind of laying out the consequences of their actions. And one of the things that he says to Eve is that your husband will rule over you. And the word that I think was used in kind of the Hebrew texts for Genesis, that it's not just it's not just being in charge of. It's a word that implies kind of like cruel dictatorship, like a tyranny kind of rule over. But the thing that and I know that there are some people, some maybe fundamentalist Protestant groups or whatever, that take that as God is saying, here's how it has to, like he's prescribing it. Like, okay, so here's how you're going to have to live this way. But here's the thing. He's not really. What he's doing is pointing out to Eve, because you brought selfishness into the world and led your man, Adam, into a state of selfishness, well, now that's the reality you have to live with. And guess what? He's bigger than you. He's stronger than you. And now he's selfish.
Yeah.
So guess what? You're going to suffer because of that. That's really what God was saying. So when we look in terms of masculinity from a Christian calling perspective, that calling is to reject that selfishness and return to a practice of what you could call pre-fall masculinity.
Or post,
post-cross masculinity.
Right. Because it's
right?
the new Adam who would give us the ability to, and the grace to get out of that selfish mode.
Right. So now we try to take those very same instincts that we're born with just because we're men, because that's how God designed us, and then watch out for and reject the selfish overlay on those. And yeah, you're right. I mean, if Christ is the new Adam, then that example should be our new example. And so yeah, a post-cross masculinity is a good way to think of it.
And we could point out here that it was the fall, while it was linked with Eve's willingness to be deceived.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's Adam's unwillingness to embrace his position as the protector during that. And we talk about Adam's sin. We don't... Generally, it's referred to as Adam's sin, not Eve's.
Yes, it's the sin of Adam, and you could almost lay both acts, both Eve's act and Adam's act, at Adam's feet. Why? Because he was in the garden with her, and when the serpent was making his overtures, he didn't stop that. He didn't interrupt that, right? So, yeah, he did not exercise his masculine calling to step up, to dominate, to protect, and to lead.
And thanks to him.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, okay. So, I guess the commercial isn't itself have any bad messages other than the kind of the implication
that our fathers and grandfathers have somehow been trying, have been doing it wrong in terms of what they've been trying to teach.
Yeah.
As a model of masculinity.
Yeah. And for that reason, personally, I will not buy Gillette anymore. But I haven't been buying them for a while.
Yeah, that's hard for me. I use Gillette shavers and deodorants.
I have always liked their razors.
I'm gonna see how it plays out a little bit more. I mean, there may be more to come. You don't know.
Especially
as they have chances to respond to some of the pushback on the commercial and stuff like that.
Well, I've tried a number of generic razors, and there's always that little tip right under my nose that I can't quite get to. And
yeah, Gillettes have that blade that does real well there, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so I did do the Dollar Shave Club.
Oh, did you? I was going to
those do work.
That. I've heard about it.
It works, but there's two things. Number one, if you hold up the Gillette blade in the light and the Dollar Shave Club blade in the light and look at the reflections and stuff, you can see how the Gillette blades are straight and the other ones are just a tiny bit kind of warped.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how much difference that makes. But also, when you're shaving with the generic ones, your hair and whatever gets kind of clumped up between the blades. And it's harder and harder to... You have to rinse it more often, and you have to tap out the hair and stuff to get it clear so you can make another swipe.
Yeah.
That's kind of a pain. But I'm not going to buy Gillette for a while.
Yeah. Okay, so that's our
podcast on that.
That's a pretty good take, though. We had more to say than I thought we would.
I thought we'd be here longer, but I always think that.
Oh.
All right, so in current events,
let's talk about
a lot
of
junk
events
going on.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we could start with the shutdown being, quote, temporarily suspended.
Sort of, yeah.
What's
interesting? I only learned this the other day, leading up to the shutdown. The suspension. Like at least twice, Republicans try to convene to pass a just basically a let's pay the government workers. Let's make sure all those families get paychecks. And the Democrats resisted it and wouldn't go along with it. Like, the first time there were 4 or 6 Democrats that went along. The second time there were 10 Democrats that went along. But it's the Republicans who have been trying to say, let's at least get these families
without
a paycheck.
Ending the shutdown.
Right,
so
exactly.
We're going to pay them even though we're not opening the government. That's what the Republicans tried to do a couple times.
Right.
And you don't see that anywhere in the news. It's a shame. But the thing is, I mean, I still don't know. I still feel like he caved.
Oh, right.
I mean,
right. Even though it's only a temporary.
He didn't get the wall, and we're going to have to go through all this again in 3 weeks. Only we're going to have to start over, so they're going to have to be... Unless he plans on making some kind of changes. Maybe he's got something up his sleeve. I don't know. I tend more to trust Trump than to not trust Trump. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We shall see.
Okay, so let's see. Roger Stone. His house is raided in the middle of the night. Well, not at 6 in the morning.
Right.
Arrested. A bunch of armed FBI agents come in and storm his house. I can't remember. It was 20-something agents with guns drawn. And it's just odd that they did that when, they could have just gone to his house and knocked on his door. They wouldn't have needed any guns. It's not like he's a danger or anything.
Right.
And CNN happened to be there at 6 in the morning.
They happened to be, huh?
Yeah, 6 in the morning. CNN happened to be there. They were the only news agency there. It doesn't make sense. And the crimes that he was charged with are all process crimes.
Right.
They're
right. And for that, they had to do a big raid.
So until... Yeah, a raid. And until the investigation, he had not committed any crime. He's not charged with any crime. Well, the same as Flynn.
Yeah.
FBI's got to be
it's weird.
Under control. Yeah. These are American citizens. I don't understand why we're allowing this to happen to American citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way dictators do things. And
exactly.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah. No, this is another one of those cases where, they've been conducting the investigation so long. Some people have perhaps acted inappropriately in regards to the investigation, but there's no original crime.
Yeah, and
they're being charged with.
I mean, it's like they were set up for the crime. You ask someone 100 times the same question in different ways, and in one of those ways, suddenly the answer's a little bit different. We got a process crime. Yeah.
It's bizarre, and you're right. I mean, if you wanted to run like the dictators, but in a country that you couldn't get away with it, this is how you do it.
Yeah. I think that's all I got.
All right.
Except for the Venezuela things, we've recognized.
Oh, yeah, that's
a new
the
leader,
collapse.
Juan Guaido, or something like that.
Right. One more example of socialism not working. And there's that eventually enough of the world will learn the lesson to stop trying.
You'd think.
But the thing is, socialism. It's not about what. Socialism isn't about the promises of socialism. It's a tool. Socialism, I think, always has been a tool to allow those who are going to exercise power to acquire complete power. Socialism. Somebody said religion is the opiate of the masses. Well, I think really socialism is. Socialism is what calms the masses and allows a dictator to step in and take power.
Yeah.
And then it falls apart, but by the time it really falls to pieces, that original dictator has usually been replaced by another anyway. So
right.
for his short life in in power, he got the benefits of everybody giving him totalitarian power over their country or their whatever. So and sometimes it lasts longer than others.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Cuba and Fidel and how long he was in power.
Well, the only thing we can definitely say about it is that it doesn't work. For a country, I mean, it's always bad for a country. Always.
Yep. Never good.
I think that's all I've got. Well, you have some...
Well, I got something, a couple of lighter things here. I sent you a link. I want you to look at this. We're not going to be able to convey this
Where'd you send it?
during the podcast, but open this link and watch the video. It's kind of amazing in its own way, and I almost want to link the video on our webpage.
Yeah, we can link it. She's
this is a mom.
It
doesn't
car,
really
picks up a flip
What's that?
flop.
Yeah, and throws it.
And
we don't see the initial argument, but this is an amazing throw.
Is that her daughter or something?
Presumably. I don't know if it's her daughter or what, but...
damn good throw.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
It reminds me of Aunt Rose.
Yeah.
Did you... well, see, you didn't stay over there as much because you didn't have a Callahan counterpart.
Friend, to spend the night with, right?
We had a family friend that was... It was bigger than ours, but they were the Callahans, and, like, most of the kids in our family had a Callahan kid who was kind of our best friend. And
yeah. I mean, we were cousins. That's,
right.
So
the Angles and the Callahans, two kind of big families. Callahans are a lot bigger than us, but
right.
I would go over there, and that was the thing. If you got Aunt Rose angry at you, you'd get hit with a shoe. It would just come out of nowhere, and then she'd be like, "Bring me back my shoe." It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
I'd never seen her throw something that far, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I got two, it's kind of funny. Two stories involving kids. So there's this one boy who got stuck in a toy, and the police had to come and rescue him from out of his toy.
What kind of toy?
He was... it says 20-month-old, so he's almost 2 years old, and they've got these pictures. He's kind of like in this box. I guess it's a box that wasn't necessarily meant to be, crawled into, but he crawled into it and then got stuck and he couldn't get out, and the mom had to call the police to try to get him out of it.
What kind of toy was it?
It's, you ever been to like a dentist's office and they've got those toys that have, it's like a box, and each side has these like not grooves but slots cut in them that may curve around and go different places, and then you've got these different, whether it's beads or little toys that you can move around the slots.
It
looks like it's that kind of a box, and like he turned it upside down, and the bottom of it was maybe just open, so he turned it upside down and did what kids are going to do, what boys are going to do anyway, and climbed into it, right? So
do you remember we would play hide and seek when we were kids?
Yeah.
My favorite was the dryer. And then you turned it on me once.
I did?
I hid in there, and I always kept the door just cracked. And then I saw you headed toward it, and all of a sudden the door slammed shut and the thing went on. I was like, ah!
I don't remember that, but do you remember, you know the Hickses?
Yeah. Another big family. With
not related to us, but close friends of, and so forth.
Most of us had a counterpart in the Hicks family,
right?
And you had like two.
Yeah, Jay and Josh, we all kind of hung out. But once in a while, I'd spend the night with them, and they had this thing. They would go into the dryer and take turns turning it on as kind of like a ride.
Mm-hmm. I could imagine. I was kind of a scaredy cat. I was scared to death when that happened. But the Hickses, they were rough. Because that was a family full of boys.
Kind of fearless. Yeah.
It was all boys.
Yeah.
So there were
all boys.
There was none of the calming sex in that family, except for the mom, who was pretty tough herself.
Mm-hmm.
And Josie.
Josie, right. Josephine and
can't remember that guy's name.
Her Jerry, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know it was two J's because every boy's name began with J.
That's right. So it was Jay, Josh, Jacob. I can't remember the others. There were at least three more. Big family, all boys, and every one of them
took turns in the
has
dryer.
a name begin with J.
I was over there once, and they were talking about they wanted to go down to this. There was a lot somewhere that was under construction, and they wanted to go see if the keys were still in the Bobcats and stuff.
To drive them around?
Well, and they had already. They had already done it. Someone, and this is kind of a bad section of Cincinnati, but someone had a bunch of heavy equipment there, and they had left the keys in them, and they had gone and started them, and I guess they drove it a little bit and then got scared and went back, but they were talking each other into going back down, and I'm like, are you guys nuts? They sent like a scout, and he went to see, and he said, no, the keys are all gone.
Oh.
So.
Okay, well, that kind of left you off that hook.
Yeah,
then.
I'm glad, because I would have chickened out.
Well, my next story that I found also involves a young boy. This is a 3-year-old North Carolina boy who went missing for like 2 or 3 days. He was finally found in a tangle of some vines and thorns. He was a little bit scratched up. He was wet and cold, but he could talk and he was fine. And once they found him, they took him to the hospital naturally to check him out, and he's talking and everything. But they asked where he was, and he said that a bear came and hung out with him for a couple of days.
A couple of days, huh? A bear.
Yeah, he hung out with a bear for a couple of days. This is a 3-year-old. Now, I mean, he's been alone for a couple days.
Did anyone figure it out?
No, that's all they've got is that a bear hung out with him for a couple days.
Huh.
I don't know. A guardian angel, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's,
Well, stories about, like, feral kids. There was
raised by wolves, stuff like that.
Yeah, there was a documentary about feral kids, and
oh, really?
Yeah, the guy had gone to somewhere in Africa. There was a boy who had supposedly been raised by monkeys. He claimed that the monkeys would give him the food that they had. The guy doing the documentary said it was more likely that he just kind of hung around the monkeys for a sense of security, because and that he saw what they were eating and went ahead and got some for himself. But he was with monkeys for like from a very early age. He could walk, obviously, when it started. And then until he was like 7 or 8 or 9, until the orphanage came and found him and took him somewhere.
Wow, man.
And then
that's pretty amazing.
There was the feral girls who had been, quote, raised by wolves. That ended up being a hoax. Here in America somewhere, there was...
I didn't hear about that one.
Yeah, there was an orphan guy who had claimed that he had feral children who had been raised by wolves, and it turned out to be a couple of retarded girls who had not been raised by wolves, but they couldn't really communicate well, and he had been using them as kind of a means of getting funding and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's...
But there are one couple cases of actual feral children.
Interesting.
Apparently this boy is one of them, maybe. If that was real bear.
Yeah, just 2 days worth.
A couple days.
Hung out with the bear.
It was like the bear in the big blue house or something.
Yeah.
I had one.
I don't know, but 3 years old. I mean, how could he,
How could he think that up? But,
Yeah, it wouldn't occur to him to lie about a bear showing up.
You might say that, but I've had some kids who make up some of the weirdest things, and they talk about them as if they're real. I mean, one of my sons would come down every night with a different story about what happened that day, and they involved tigers and stuff like that. And I think he did it every night, and I think once or twice I went ahead and recorded it because it was so funny. The stories he would come up with. So I don't know. Maybe he's just got a active imagination.
Very, very active imagination. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he just slept for 2 days and dreamed about bears.
Maybe there was a dream. Is that all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay. So we got one more current event items, which I'm going to stop them. Do you know that I put music to the background of these when we do current events?
I know that you do it because I listened to it, but I assumed that was always post, like a production thing, not while we're recording.
I didn't know if you knew that I actually did that, but okay. So, New York passes
New York.
The Reproductive
Abortion
Health
law.
Act. This is law now, right? It doesn't have to pass anything else.
Right. He signed it. They passed it. He signed it. Yes.
So it went through their House, then their Senate, then he signed it.
Yeah.
A couple things that are noteworthy here. First of all, kind of a big thing in the left is to say that abortion is, though they won't say this exactly, but they act like it's kind of a necessary evil.
Right.
Like if you were going to declare war, it's not like you want to declare war, but it's a last chance.
A necessary.
One of the things about this is that there was a lot of cheers and clapping when they passed this, and that what bothers me about that is that the left will often talk about abortion as if it's like a necessary evil, that it's something that they don't want to do, but they have to do.
Oh, well, that used to be.
And, I mean, even Obama said that the objective should be to have less abortions.
Mm-hmm. And Clinton, Bill Clinton said that too.
So, but if that's the case, why is there so much joy over more abortions? As if...
Right. Well, that's the really, to me, scary, kind of like the diabolical side of the more recent leftist focus on this is that it's not, they're no longer treating it as a something that's unfortunately necessary. They're treating it as some kind of a weird positive good.
Yeah.
I mean, getting out with Planned Parenthood and doing these really bizarre, ugly campaigns like Shout Your Abortion and stuff like that. It's and when Kavanaugh was getting ready to be confirmed, and there were people saying, okay, everybody, you got to go out and get pregnant and get an abortion now, because then you won't be able to once Kavanaugh's judged. Weird stuff like that. I mean, there's really I don't know. It's almost like there's something weird in the water. Like there's a disease or a sickness going on.
Yeah. It's terrible.
And among the American left these days, it's like they've abandoned even a semblance of just basic
humanity.
I don't even know what you would call it. Humanity.
It's and the thing about this law is that, well, it's a law, and these are elected representatives, and if you think about something like the Holocaust, the way we're able to accept what happened in our mind is that there was a dictator who was really, really, really bad. And for some reason, a bunch of people followed him, but it's the dictator that we say is bad.
Yeah, we kind of blame it all on Hitler.
But what if Germany were either a democracy or a republic at the time, and the people's will was to kill Jews?
Yeah, that's kind of like what this is like.
Yeah, and
it's like, in fact, I would say that America, in the 21st century and especially in this decade and these past few years, it's weird. It's almost like it's building to something.
Right.
But I would say that America as a population is far more culpable for death of innocent humans than the Germans and Hitler put together.
Right. It's and some of the parts of this bill, for example, sorry. In the past, if you killed a pregnant woman, you were guilty of 2 murders, and that's going to be gone, at least under New York law.
Right.
Which, to me, I think Vermont that would be a good way to fight this.
Well, yeah, you could point that out. Vermont is getting ready to pass a similarly draconian abortion law as well. And part of the wording of the Vermont law is to explicitly say that fetuses have no legal recognition.
Well,
I mean, it's just built-in worded that way in the law. Okay, well, a human being within this particular stage of development has no recognition or protection under the law. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's
it makes sense if abortion is going to be legal.
Well, the thing is, by putting it out there so explicitly, to me, what they're doing is they're codifying in law the arbitrariness of abortion.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick, we're going to say a certain class of people based on the stage of development, they don't get protection. The parents have the right, or the mother has the right to have them killed. But once you put that out there, and once the law openly acknowledges it that way and says, well, you have to reach a certain stage of development as a human being before you're allowed to receive protection under the law in our state, that line becomes arbitrary, and you can put that anywhere.
Right. Which is...
That's what's really, really chilling about the Vermont wording of the law.
Which is what Philip K. Dick's short story, The Pre-Person, is all about.
Yeah, pre-persons. That's right.
I think I had called it the unperson or something in another podcast, but it's the pre-person that...
right. Pre-persons. He picked the, when you could do complex algebra or something like that. It was a... And it's kind of funny. People criticized him for as though he was making a prediction, calling it silly and stuff like that. He wasn't making a prediction, though. What he was doing was pointing out how arbitrary it is to use passing through the birth canal as your definition of when you get to be protected. That's what he was doing, was saying, hey, this...
If you're going to say it this, why not here? Why not here?
Picking that. Exactly.
And then eventually, when do you stop being a person? Right now, it's when you're brain dead. But if we've set these kinds of precedents, then it's just
right. I mean, you've got countries already where things like they've gotten so much onto the physician-assisted suicide that now, for people who are, maybe a little have a diminished mental capacity, instead of a physician-assisted, it's physician-prescribed.
Right.
Okay. Well, we've decided that you really need to die, so we're just going to kill you. Wow.
I mean,
that's what they're doing.
I think we fall back to I don't really enjoy most of his coined phrases, but we're looking at a culture of death here, and it's really chilling.
Yeah.
That
yes,
this could
John
happen.
Paul II.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's
the other part of this is that under the New York law, a botched abortion.
Right. Somebody
matter.
ends up born alive. They can kill them now outside of the womb.
Right. So birth is no longer now, the time at which you say this is a person.
Yeah, in a strict sense. Or maybe, and this could be even more chilling, maybe it's not even about being a person. Maybe it's just, hey, you don't get to be... Yeah, you're a person who does not get to be protected under the law.
Yeah. So...
that's...
So the birth means nothing anymore, obviously.
Right.
But we're still killing them.
So when is Cuomo and New York going to... just kind of become intellectually honest and say, okay, it really means nothing to be born or not. We're going to give moms a chance to figure out whether they really want to be moms. Go ahead, have the baby, take them home, take it for a spin, see if you're really cut out for it. If you're not, bring it back, we'll take care of it. When is he going to just be intellectually honest and go ahead and make that part of New York law?
And someone might hear that and say, okay, you're just being silly now. But
yeah, no, we're not. Because you know what? That has actually already been something that that various, agreed, not mainstream out there, sociologists and other scientists have already been proposing.
If you're going to follow this stuff logically, that's where it goes. That is the next step. You can't... It has to be the next step.
Mm-hmm. And there will be a next step.
There always is a next step.
That's the thing about evil. It's restless. It isn't satisfied having what it has. It always wants more.
Yeah. And when I heard about it happening, you go through things like frustration and anger, but really all I can say about it at this point is just sad. It almost makes me want to cry. It's like, I cannot believe we're doing that in this country. It's
right in this country, right?
This is America. I was saddened when Ireland voted to legalize abortion. And I'm more saddened by this because this is
our country.
Yeah, I feel like we've been blessed, and I don't think that's going to happen too much longer if this actually becomes the will of the people collectively.
Mm-hmm.
I just
right. Well, it's you've got New York and Vermont passing these extreme abortion laws, and I almost wonder if there's going to be the beginnings of a geographical alignment,
right,
with regards to abortion.
I think you got the coast and then the Midwest.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you've got a line in the sand, once you've got a geography, and you can draw a line and say this side, that side, something this extreme, you have the makings of a civil war. It could be where things are headed.
I almost would prefer that happen. I don't know. I mean, as opposed to just allowing that to be what the laws, as opposed to allowing half of our current country to go ahead and kill babies. I would rather see a civil war where we could die for trying to protect the lives of the unborn.
Right. And eventually, like I said, and here's the thing, I think before it becomes a civil war, it won't any longer be the lives of the unborn.
Right. And all of this, the controversy and the conflict will obviously get much worse than it is right now. But speaking of all this, I mean, Kavanaugh has already kind of caved, and it's looking like he's not quite as pro-life as we thought he would be.
Well, I don't know about pro-life. I know that there was one the one court case that he voted with the liberal justices to decline to hear, and Clarence Thomas kind of ripped all of them a new one for it. He really took the court to task for shirking its responsibilities on the matter. So he gets my praises.
Right.
In fact, Clarence Thomas has actually been one of the most consistently spot-on justices. But I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know whether it was one of those where he wanted to, he voted with the decision to not even hear the case, and I don't know whether it's because he's looking for a different kind of case to hear where that can be more effective than that one would have been.
That could be because
or something like that. That's
we can pray.
I'm not going to be too condemning yet. He's a rookie. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're going to end on that note, and I think everybody needs to pray the rosary about that.
We need prayers. That get out and circle the beads. Is that a saying? Circle the beads.
Circle the beads.
Circle the beads.
That's
it's like circling the wagons. Let's circle the wagons around our country.
We should make that.
That's going
to be the war cry or the slogan for a podcast about Catholic things from now on. Circle the beads,
right.
Everyone.
Circle the beads. Pray the rosary. Hey, by the way, did you get my text message about, and we'll go ahead and keep this on the podcast so people can pick it up if they want, but I don't know, was it Coke or Pepsi that had the choice of a new generation?
I think that was Pepsi, but I'm not
Pepsi,
sure.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, there's so much energy among the youth in the pro-life movement. It just occurred to me that could be kind of a slogan, life, the choice of a new generation.
Well, we could just tweak it a little bit, say life, the choice of the new generation.
That's right, the choice of the new generation. I don't think
there would be much of a case if you tried to steal that.
That's true. We could just put that out there. Maybe somebody will pick it up.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to a podcast about Catholic things. Think about what we said and circle the beads.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.